Hey guys, today I'm sharing with you one of the absolute best bread recipes that you can make. If you love chocolate cake and bread, this is a way that you can have your chocolate cake for breakfast. It is seriously one of the absolute best bread recipes, and I am so grateful, thankful, and blessed by God with this recipe. I love to serve it with this chocolate cheesecake hazelnut spread, or you can use Nutella. Let's get started. In a bowl here, I have some whole milk. This is a half a cup of whole milk and 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. To that, I'm going to add in some granulated sugar. We're going to be using a half a cup of granulated sugar. I'm going to gently just give that a little mix to kind of get that sugar in with the milk, and I'm going to pop this in my microwave for about 45 seconds or so to heat up that milk. The butter is going to start to melt, and we want it to be really nice and warm for our yeast. After about 45 seconds, you can see the butter starting to melt. My sugar still is in there, but that's perfectly fine. To that, we're going to go ahead and add in our yeast. You can use active dry or instant yeast. For this recipe, I am using 2 1/4 teaspoons, or you can use 1 packet of yeast. So I'm going to give that a gentle mix and set that aside for the yeast to activate and do its thing. So in a separate bowl here, I have 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, and you're going to need a half a cup of cocoa powder. I am using Dutch processed cocoa powder, but use whatever cocoa powder you have on hand. I'm starting to see bubbles forming in my milk. I'm just going to go ahead and add in my eggs, 2 large eggs. And we're just going to give this a gentle mix, just to kind of get those eggs whisked in. And now our dry ingredients, all I'm going to do is mix together our cocoa powder and our flour. Now I did not sift my cocoa powder, so I'm just going to get my hands in there to make sure there are no big lumps. Now you don't need to sift it because as you're kneading this, everything will get incorporated, but you don't just want like a big huge lump of cocoa powder in one area. That's looking beautiful and already smells like you're making a chocolate cake, which is what I love about this recipe. It's like having chocolate cake for breakfast without feeling too guilty about it. So I made a well in the center of my bowl, and I'm adding in my wet ingredients. I'm making sure to get all of that sugar off the bottom because the sugar is important in this recipe to balance off with the cocoa. Now I'm going to start in the center of my bowl with my spoon, and I'm going to slowly start incorporating my dry ingredients into my wet. I'm not mixing it all together at one time, just slowly taking my time, incorporating the dry into the wet. Adding little by little of the dry and just mixing it. This is actually going to help work with that gluten. It's going to give us a really beautifully soft bread. Now when it does get to the point that you really can't mix it anymore, like batter, we're going to clean up our spoon and plop this on our countertop. Make sure your countertop is dry and clean, and just plop your dough onto your countertop. Now, I'm just going to start working in all of that dry ingredients together by just folding it in. As you can see, I'm bringing in all of the flour and everything to make it into one And once it's mostly all together, we're going to start kneading this. Now, of course, you can do this in a standing mixer, but I always knead my bread by hand. I'm going to start off with the back of my wrist. I'm going to start off with the back of my wrist, and in the center of the dough, just find the center anywhere, and we're going to push out on that dough with our wrist. We're going to bring the dough back in and turning as we go. And that's pretty much all you're going to want to do. I'm going to be using both of my wrists at some time, one of my wrists. I'm going to turn sometimes. I'm not going to turn sometimes. You just want to be moving your dough, and you do want to keep turning it to make sure that each part of it is getting kneaded. And we're going to knead this for 5 to 8 minutes until it is a nice smooth dough ball. You don't want to press too hard on it because your dough can stick to the counter, and you really should not need any extra flour for this recipe. Knead it for 5 to 8 minutes. If you are using a stand mixer, let it go for about 4 to 5 minutes. Dough is smooth, it's come together beautifully, and it's actually really soft. It has a really nice consistency, kind of like a Tootsie Roll. So we're going to just form this into a little ball. I'm just doing a little extra knead here. Take your sides, turn it into itself, and pinch and seal the bottom. And then form that into a ball. Now we have a bowl here that you want to spray with nonstick cooking spray, or brush a little bit of vegetable oil or something on it. Make sure and get all the sides of the dough rolled around in that so it doesn't stick. We're going to cover this up with some cling wrap or plastic wrap and a towel and place it in a warm area to rise. Now, because this is a really enriched dough, it's going to take a lot longer to rise. So give it about an hour and 45 minutes or so, an hour and 30 minutes in a really nice warm area. We want this to be about doubled or even more in size. I let mine go for about 2 hours because I just had the time, and I just let it sit there and rest and rise, and it's such an amazing dough. You can see it is such a beautiful and soft, smooth dough. We're just going to plop this over onto our countertop. Flatten it out a little bit. You want it to be about 12 inches long. We're going to take one end and fold it over into itself and do the other side as well. Take both ends and both sides, and we're just going to fold it into itself. Press it down to seal it. Turn it over, and we're going to take the sides and kind of tuck it under to give it a little bit of a rise on itself. Forming it into a nice little loaf to make sure that it can fit into your pan, whatever size pan you are using. Spray your pan with nonstick cooking spray, or brush a little bit of vegetable oil or whatever on your pan so it does not stick. We're going to cover this again, loosely cover it this time because we do want this to rise above our pan. So don't cover it too tightly so it does have that space to rise above the pan. Place it in a warm area to rise for about another 30 to 45 minutes. After it has risen above your pan, remove the cling wrap And you're going to place it in your oven at 350 for about 25 minutes. After your bread has come out of the oven, your house is going to be smelling like chocolate cake. Something that I love about this, I can kind of have chocolate cake for breakfast without feeling so guilty about it. This is absolutely beautiful. Took about 25 minutes or so at 350. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of butter and brush the top as well as the sides with a little bit of butter. Just till it's nice and glistening on top. Make sure and get all of the sides. And this is a tip that I do with any of my loaf bread that I am making. I take some foil and I'm going to go ahead and cover our bread with it. Now I'm doing this with one hand, so you want to make sure and be careful because it obviously will still be hot. It's just out of the oven, but you want to make sure that the sides are nice and tightly sealed. So the bread is actually going to continue to steam under that foil, which is going to give you a result of a beautiful, soft, fluffy loaf of bread. So leave it covered with the foil, place a towel on top of it for about 20 to 25 minutes. After that, you can serve. It is absolutely amazing. It is soft, it's fluffy, it is bread, it's not cake, so don't expect it to be cake. But it does have that flavor of an amazing chocolate cake with bread. So amazingly soft, fluffy, and delicious. I love to serve this with chocolate cheesecake hazelnut spread, which kind of tastes like a Kinder Joy chocolate, or you can use Nutella. I hope that you guys enjoyed this recipe. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you try it and you enjoy it, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.